The girl donned a mask and stepped into the party, instantly drawing everyone's attention. A man in a white suit approached her and asked her to dance. To his surprise, she paid no heed to his invitation and walked away. At that moment, a man wearing a Zeus god mask emerged from the crowd. The girl recognized this as her golden opportunity and wasted no time. She confidently pulled the man onto the stage and began performing seductive dance moves, each involving physical contact. Her objective was clear: captivate this man and secure a wealthy marriage for a life of luxury. In Korea, one fast track to wealth is joining high society matchmaking events, aiming to marry into affluent families. Among these, Rex is the most prestigious matchmaking organization in the country. Its clientele includes heirs of tycoons and renowned business magnates, with only those possessing billions in assets qualifying for membership. The elite VIP tier is reserved for individuals with assets worth hundreds of billions. The women invited to Rex events are no less remarkable. They come from affluent families, are exceptionally beautiful, and possess advanced education. However, meeting these criteria is merely the first step. Candidates undergo rigorous evaluations overseen by Rex's management, with only the most outstanding women gaining full membership. Annual membership fees amount to hundreds of millions of won, granting access to these exclusive gatherings. The mastermind behind Rex is Mrs. Yu Seon, who firmly believes that marriage is a business venture, profitable only with sufficient wealth. Yu Seon herself married a paralyzed billionaire and used his fortune to establish Rex. Recently, she planned to host the grandest, most luxurious banquet ever. This event was designed to attract high-caliber individuals, particularly billionaire Hyung-ju, a VIP member of Rex. Hyung-ju, a young and dashing tycoon with a public company, is the epitome of the perfect match: rich, handsome, and single. Unsurprisingly, he has become the ultimate prize for many women in the Rex organization, some of whom are willing to go to any lengths to secure him. One such woman is Yoo-hee, fortunate to have crossed paths with Hyung-ju. She is well acquainted with Korea's wealthiest men. Determined to win Hyung-ju's affection and secure her place in a wealthy family, Yoo-hee invested a substantial sum to become a VIP member of Rex. She even bribed the organization's manager, hoping it would bring her closer to her goal. On the other hand, Hae-sung is the polar opposite of Yoo-hee. A humble and honest university lecturer, Hae-sung is a divorced single mother raising a 13-year-old child on her own. One day at work, she received a mysterious text inviting her to a Rex event. Confused, as she had never been involved in such activities, she dismissed it. However, upon returning home, her mother handed her a Rex business card, revealing that she had registered Hae-sung for the event. Her mother explained that attending this event could be a golden chance to meet wealthy individuals, urging her to seize the opportunity. However, Hae-sung, uninterested in remarrying, was skeptical. She was also concerned about the cost of registration. When she pressed her mother for details, her mother hesitantly indicated it cost 10 million won. Shocked, Hae-sung couldn't comprehend where her mother had gotten such a large sum. Her mother refused to elaborate, simply stating that she wanted her daughter to have a comfortable future, even if it meant spending her last penny. Although Hae-sung was furious with her mother's decision, she noticed that the cherished family heirloom ring was no longer on her mother's hand. Realizing her mother had sold their most valuable possession to raise the 10 million won, she couldn't help but feel a mix of guilt and sadness. Even so, Hae-sung no longer had dreams of remarrying. Determined not to disappoint her mother, but unwilling to continue the charade, she visited Rex the following day to return the membership card. At the counter, the staff accepted the card, but asked her to wait, explaining that only the manager could process the return. Around this time, Yu Seon had just returned to the club after addressing the demands of an important client. She immediately met with Yoo-hee, who had bribed the manager earlier. Recognizing Yoo-hee as a prominent lawyer, Yu Seon greeted her warmly. However, when Yu Seon called out Yoo-hee's name, it startled Hae-sung, who was standing nearby. Suspicious of the name, she turned around to confirm if the woman was the one she despised. In her distraction, she accidentally knocked over a vase, causing a loud crash that drew everyone's attention. The room instantly became tense as Hae-sung and Yoo-hee locked eyes, their gazes filled with hostility. The unresolved tension hinted at a deeper story. It turned out that Hae-sung once had a happy family. Her husband was a devoted partner, her daughter excelled academically, and her husband's career was thriving. Their peaceful life was shattered when Yoo-hee entered the picture. As a company lawyer, Yuhi seduced Hae-sung's husband, Namsik, with the intent of taking control of his assets. Namsik, unable to resist Yuhi's allure, betrayed his wife. One day, he asked Hae-sung for a divorce, leaving her stunned. Initially, she assumed he was speaking nonsense after drinking too much. However, when Namsik packed his belongings and left the house the next day, her worst fears were confirmed. She confronted him, demanding to know if he was having an affair, but his silence was the only answer she received, shattering her completely. Desperate, Hae-sung pleaded with her husband not to leave. She reminded him of the 15 years she had dedicated to their marriage, sacrificing her dreams for their family. She pointed out their daughter's outstanding achievements and begged him to reconsider for the sake of their child, who was still so young. But Namsik, consumed by his feelings for Yuhi, abandoned his wife and daughter without a second thought. That night, he moved in with Yuhi, leaving behind his family and responsibilities. The following day, Hae-sung composed herself and reluctantly agreed to the divorce. Later, Namsik approached Yuhi to retrieve the money he had entrusted to her, intending to use it for their daughter's alimony. However, Yuhi revealed her true nature, refusing to return the funds. She claimed that any money in her possession was now hers and denied having coerced Namsik into leaving his family. She dismissed his pleas and shifted all the blame onto him, stating that his misuse of company funds was his own doing. Realizing too late that he had been deceived, Namsik found himself abandoned by Yuhi as well. His troubles only worsened when his company investigated the misappropriation of funds and Yuhi refused to take any responsibility, leaving him to face the consequences alone. Stripped of his family, his lover, and his career, Namsik was left to confront the depth of his mistakes and the betrayal he had endured. Unexpectedly, the man on the other end of the call played a recording. In it, Yuhi's voice could be heard, sobbing pitifully as she claimed that she had been drunk that night and raped by Namsik in a hotel. She further stated that she had only helped cover up his misuse of company funds because of this incident. Hearing this, Namsik was utterly stunned. Not only was he now accused of embezzling public funds, but he was also facing allegations of rape. This left him with the possibility of severe legal consequences, including financial compensation. Helpless against Yuhi's accusations, Namsik found himself fired and sued by his company. Meanwhile, Yuhi shamelessly sought out Hae-sung. Mockingly, she told Hae-sung to take good care of her husband, claiming that he often came to harass and threaten her, even proposing marriage. Yuhi added insult to injury by saying that she, being young and beautiful, had no interest in someone like Namsik. That night, overwhelmed by despair, Namsik couldn't handle the drastic downfall. Just days ago, he had been a respected employee. Now, he had lost everything because of Yuhi. In his despair, he climbed to the rooftop, ready to end his life. In his final moments, he called Hae-sung and confessed everything, admitting that Yuhi had manipulated and betrayed him. Sensing something wrong in his tone, Hae-sung rushed home, but it was too late. The sight that greeted her left her utterly devastated. While Hae-sung mourned, Yuhi reveled in her so-called victory, lounging in a luxurious hotel's pool, sipping drinks without a care. The following day, before Hae-sung could recover, court officers arrived to seize and confiscate all her remaining belongings, leaving her with nothing, not even her soccer shoes. Stripped of her livelihood, she turned to her former university professor for help, hoping he could use his connections to find her a job. However, despite his scholarly demeanor, the professor made inappropriate advances. Disgusted, Hae-sung made an excuse to leave. As she exited, she unexpectedly ran into her first love, Seok-jin. Overwhelmed and unwilling to linger, she tried to leave quickly. However, Seok-jin hadn't forgotten her and handed her his business card, urging her to contact him if she needed help. Not long after, Hae-sung encountered Yuhi once again. Initially, she intended to return the membership card, but after hearing some details from an assistant, she decided to keep it. Her purpose in joining the dating club wasn't to find a wealthy match, but to seek revenge on Yuhi. Just as she stepped outside, she found Yuhi waiting for her. Yuhi taunted her, accusing her of rushing to find a new lover so soon after losing her husband. She even shamelessly repeated her false claims about Namsik. However, Hae-sung remained unfazed and retaliated with sharp words, pointing out that no one would love Yuhi if they knew the truth about her actions. Yuhi's expression darkened, and she warned Hae-sung not to spread rumors, but Hae-sung simply smiled and walked away. At the same time, Rex's internal team was finalizing the guest list for the gala night. Yuhi was among the 5 women selected for her exceptional qualities. However, Yu Seon, doubting Yuhi's lack of a wealthy family background, considered removing her from the list. The next day, Hae-sung returned to Rex's facility to pay for the vase she had broken earlier. While there, she noticed a bulletin announcing that Yu Seon would be delivering a speech that evening. Intrigued, she decided to attend. On stage, Yu Seon spoke confidently about her beliefs. She shared her view that a husband didn't need to love her deeply. What mattered was his ability to support her ambitions. Her candid and pragmatic perspective on love resonated deeply with Hae-sung, leaving her with much to reflect on. When the conference concluded, Hae-sung took the initiative to approach Yu Seon. She asked her directly how she could take revenge on someone who had wronged her. Recognizing Hae-sung's intelligence and determination, Yu Seon gave her a thoughtful response. She explained that to destroy someone, you must become the person they fear most. If your own abilities aren't enough, leverage others to achieve your goals. Once you've reached a certain position, there will be nothing you cannot accomplish. Hae-sung was deeply inspired by these words. At that moment, Yuhi unexpectedly appeared before them. She claimed she had something urgent to discuss with Yu Seon, but Yu Seon tactfully dismissed her, suggesting she contact the manager if there was an issue. Later, in the restroom, Yuhi confronted Hae-sung, questioning what she had said to Yu Seon. However, Hae-sung ignored her completely. Frustrated, Yuhi tried to threaten her, hinting that if her university students discovered what had happened with Namsik, it would tarnish her reputation as a teacher. But Hae-sung, who now fully understood Yuhi's true nature, was unfazed. She had nothing left to lose and was resolute in her desire to make Yuhi pay for ruining her life. Hae-sung's reappearance made Yuhi uneasy and furious, so much so that she began having nightmares about her plans to marry into a wealthy family falling apart. This was a critical time for her, and she couldn't let Hae-sung ruin everything. The next day, Yuhi went to the school where Hae-sung worked. She offered a significant bribe to ensure Hae-sung's participation in an upcoming school activity. The professor, tempted by the offer, informed Hae-sung that she would be placed on the official payroll if she participated. Initially pleased, Hae-sung's demeanor changed when she saw that the investor behind this scheme was Yuhi. Recognizing Yuhi's malice, Hae-sung decided she wouldn't let her off so easily. Their negotiation quickly turned hostile, as Hae-sung couldn't forgive Yuhi for destroying her family. Unable to reconcile, the two parted on bitter terms. Desperate, Yuhi resorted to her final plan. She barged into Yu Seon's office and revealed her deepest secret. Yuhi disclosed that she was the illegitimate daughter of Counselor Young, a man poised to become the next president. However, Counselor Young considered her an embarrassment and refused to acknowledge her publicly. Yuhi offered Yu Seon this critical piece of information, proposing a deal. In exchange for making her a VIP member and granting her access to Hyungju, she would share this secret. Yu Seon contemplated the offer, but there was another layer to the story. Counselor Young's current wife had also approached Yu Seon with her own proposal. She offered the lucrative land development rights in exchange for pairing her daughter, Mi-jin, with Hyungju. Mi-jin, though not biologically related to Counselor Young, bore his family name and enjoyed his full affection. Counselor Young's wife, a powerful figure in the political scene, aimed to elevate her daughter to a position of power and influence. Compared to Yuhi's offer, the deal from Counselor Young's wife was far more enticing. Securing the land development rights would give Yu Seon the leverage she needed to negotiate with her husband for 50% of the corporation shares. Despite marrying into wealth, Yu Seon had long felt like a servant to her husband, managing their household to maintain her position as the president of Rex. If she wanted full control of the corporation, she would need to employ clever strategies. Carefully weighing the proposals, Yu Seon found herself caught between the conditions offered by Yuhi and those from Counselor Young's wife. Knowing that her decision could shape her future, Yu Seon ultimately decided to support Mi-jin, the more privileged and ideal candidate, and devised a strategic plan for the selection process, a grand masquerade ball. This event would feature the top 20 most eligible men from the VIP membership list, alongside exceptional female guests carefully chosen for their qualities. The ball would allow participants to present themselves and seek partners through fair and open interaction. To maintain secrecy and intrigue, no personal information could be disclosed, and any violation would result in immediate disqualification. Invitations were quickly sent out to the selected women, and the news soon reached Yuhi, courtesy of a manager she had bribed. Viewing this as her perfect chance, Yuhi felt confident she could outshine everyone at the event. With family backgrounds hidden behind masks, she believed her charm alone would secure her the top position. She also learned that, due to his current membership status, Haesung wasn't eligible to participate, which eased her worries. However, what Yuhi didn't know was that Yu Seon had secretly extended an invitation to Hasan. Yu Seon, having noticed a peculiar dynamic between Yuhi and Hasan, sought to add an element of intrigue to the proceedings. Initially, Haesung had no interest in attending the ball and intended to decline the invitation. However, upon discovering that Yuhi would be present, she changed her mind and decided to accept. Meanwhile, Yu Seon approached Hyungju for his opinion about the event. Though Hyungju found such gatherings unappealing and refused to attend, his mother's involvement in matchmaking left him little choice. His mother hoped he would find a compatible, family-oriented wife, but Hyungju's own preference leaned towards someone who could truly understand him. Yu Seon, recognizing the dissatisfaction among VIP clients, reassured Hyungyo by emphasizing that the event was curated with him in mind. She explained that every participant was handpicked for their exceptional qualities and that the anonymity provided by masks would ensure genuine connections, free of ulterior motives. Her words swayed Hyungyo, who reluctantly agreed to attend. Hyungju's reluctance stemmed from his past failed marriage, where his wife's infidelity had left him deeply distrustful of love. He also had a teenage son who, growing up without his mother's presence, had become withdrawn. This situation only added to his mother's urgency to find him a suitable partner. Under Yu Seon's persuasive influence, Hyungyo finally decided to participate, aligning with Yu Seon's larger scheme. As the ball preparations progressed, Yu Seon felt her plans falling into place. She anticipated that, in due time, her husband would pass away, leaving her with complete control over his wealth and assets. However, the unexpected return of Seok-jin, her estranged stepson, disrupted her plans. After more than a decade of separation, his return filled his father with joy. The elder man even encouraged Seok-jin to move back into the family home. Though Seok-jin agreed, his motives were far from filial care. He intended to reclaim the inheritance that was rightfully his, a promise he had made to his late mother. To achieve this, Seok-jin masked his true intentions and played the role of a dutiful son. Outwardly, Yu Seon expressed happiness at the father-son reconciliation, but inwardly, she sensed the looming threat. Her husband, concerned about Seok-jin's unmarried status at 40, asked Yu Seon to find him a suitable partner. Using this as an opportunity, Yu Seon informed him about the upcoming ball, and he insisted that Seok-jin attend. Although reluctant, Seok-jin agreed to please his father. Finally, the grand masquerade ball commenced, exuding opulence and elegance. The young women dressed in their finest attire and adorned exquisite masks, each determined to seize the opportunity to capture Hyungju's attention and secure a position as his wife, the future mistress of a prominent noble family. Among the attendees, Yuhi stood out as the most ambitious, determined to outmaneuver everyone else at the event. She bribed the manager to uncover that Hyungyo would be wearing a Zeus mask at the party. Dressed in an elegant red gown, Yuhi entered the venue, immediately drawing all eyes to her. Soon after, a man in a white suit approached her, inviting her to dance. However, Yuhi had her sights set on a specific goal. She ignored the man's invitation entirely, keeping her focus unwavering. When she spotted the man donning the Zeus mask enter the hall, she quickly identified her target and prepared to act. Observing him drinking and dancing with another woman, Yuhi boldly stepped forward, pulled him to the center of the stage, and began performing seductive moves. Every gesture was deliberately intimate. However, she was unaware that Yu Seon, anticipating Hyungju's identity might be revealed, had orchestrated a clever switch. The Zeus mask had been given to Seok-jin, while Hyungyo, the billionaire, wore a simple white mask. Hyungyo now stood discreetly in a corner, enjoying the event away from the spotlight. The only person who recognized Hyungyo was Mi-jin. Dressed in black, she immediately approached him. Though Hyungyo was uninterested in women who deliberately sought him out, Mi-jin was persistent. She pulled him onto the stage, directly challenging Yuhi's display by comparing their charms. Meanwhile, a woman in a white mask stood at a distance, observing the lively ball. She wasn't particularly engaged in the event. Her purpose was to confront Yuhi. Spotting a tattoo on the shoulder of the woman in red, she confirmed her identity as Yuhi. After her performance, Yuhi invited Seok-jin, still masked, to the billiards table. She showcased her exceptional skills, using every movement as an opportunity to entice her target. However, another woman soon interrupted, and the man in the white mask Hyung-yo stepped forward, drawn to Yoo-hee. Unaware of his true identity, Yoo-hee dismissed him outright. For the first time, Hyung-yo, a billionaire unused to rejection, experienced the sting of being turned away. It left him hesitant to approach her again. Yoo-hee then turned her attention back to Seok-jin, intentionally dropping an earring near him. When he bent down to retrieve it, she used the moment to strike up a conversation, eventually convincing him to step into the hallway. She introduced herself as a lawyer and emphasized her value as a potential ally in his future endeavors. Seok-jin clarified that he wasn't a businessman, but Yoo-hee dismissed this, assuming he was simply concealing his true identity until the end of the party. Emboldened, Yoo-hee began to touch his arm and tested his boundaries by leaning in for a kiss. At that exact moment, Hae-sung appeared, interrupting her plans. Flustered, Seok-jin left the scene, leaving Yoo-hee seething with frustration. Yoo-hee didn't know who the woman in the white mask was, but felt strongly that she was a deliberate obstacle. Just as Yoo-hee considered confronting Hae-sung and pulling off her mask, a couple nearby caught her attention, momentarily distracting her. Back in the main hall, Hyung-yo, still stung by Yoo-hee's rejection, noticed a quiet woman sitting on the sidelines. Taking the initiative, he approached Hae-sung and struck up a conversation. A university lecturer, she had attended the ball with her own unique purpose, which piqued Hyung-ju's curiosity. He found himself increasingly intrigued by her. As their conversation unfolded, Seok-jin also joined them, hearing Hae-sung mention that she was a graduate of Seoul Academy. This brought back memories of his first girlfriend, though he didn't realize that the masked woman in front of him was the very same person. Meanwhile, Mi-jin, who had stayed close to Hyung-yo, also joined the discussion. Yoo-hee noticed her target talking to someone else, which infuriated her. Without hesitation, she approached Seok-jin, acting overly familiar. She claimed she still had something to discuss with him and boldly asked him out. Before taking a few steps, she pretended to trip and fall. Both Seok-jin and Hyung-ju instinctively rushed to help her, and Yoo-hee, without a second thought, leaned on the one she believed was Hyung-ju. Meanwhile, Yoo Se-on observed everything from upstairs. As the event reached its climax, everyone removed their masks to reveal their true identities. Yoo-hee drew all attention when she unveiled her face, receiving enthusiastic applause from the crowd. However, she was stunned to discover that the woman in the white mask was Hae-sung. Her nerves skyrocketed as Hae-sung stood up, ready to expose all of Yoo-hee's misdeeds in front of everyone. Chaos ensued when a married couple joined the confrontation. During the commotion, Yoo-hee seized the opportunity to escape while two men got into a physical altercation, causing more chaos and prompting guests to leave. Yoo-hee spotted a man in a black suit removing the Zeus mask and immediately approached him, thinking it was Hyung-ju. To her shock, it wasn't him. Her surprise deepened when Hyung-ju appeared from behind, holding a white mask. They exchanged glances in silence, and only when she noticed the mask did Yoo-hee realize her mistake. Watching Hyung-ju drive away, she was left frozen in regret. Frustrated, Yoo-hee called her manager to demand an explanation for Hae-sung's presence at the party. The manager revealed that Yoo Se-on had invited her. Yoo-hee quickly realized she had been deceived by Yoo Se-on. Despite the evening's conclusion, participants were encouraged to choose their partners and register their preferences. Because the manager had been bribed by Yoo-hee, she pressed him for information about Hyung-ju's choice. However, the manager insisted that even the department head didn't know. Meanwhile, the department head reported to Yoo Se-on, hinting that they knew who Hyung-ju had chosen but didn't disclose it. The manager questioned why Hyung-ju would choose Hae-sung over so many impressive women, but Yoo Se-on merely smiled in response. It was also revealed that Hae-sung had not only been selected by Hyung-ju, but also by her former first love, So-jin. Later, Hae-sung visited Yoo Se-on again, this time to expose Yoo-hee's malicious actions. She detailed how Yoo-hee exploited her husband's embezzlement, framed him, and drove him to despair, ultimately leading to his death. Yoo Se-on, already aware of Yoo-hee's ambitions, was not surprised. Hae-sung expressed her belief that Yoo-hee, who used any means to achieve her goals, did not deserve happiness and should be stopped from harming others. Although Yoo Se-on had investigated Yoo-hee's background and found no incriminating evidence, she acknowledged that even if there had been scandals, they would not have justified removing Yoo-hee from the membership list. Furthermore, with over 800 matchmaking companies nationwide, banning her from one wouldn't prevent her from continuing her schemes. Hae-sung realized she couldn't chase after Yoo-hee forever. Yuseon advised Haesung that if she wanted to confront someone like Yuhi, she needed to transform herself first. Only by becoming strong could she instill fear in others and discover a better path for revenge. Haesung was momentarily stunned by these words, but after regaining her composure, she rejected Yuseon's perspective and left. As she stepped outside, she encountered Yuhi, who smirked at Haesung's troubled expression, feeling triumphant. Yuhi believed she could achieve everything she desired, but Haesung firmly declared she wouldn't let that happen. Their rivalry had only just begun. Yuhi's visit to Yuseon had another motive, to arrange a meeting with Youngju. Reflecting on her poor impression at the party due to her own mistakes, Yuhi believed a second chance would help her win him over. She assured Yuseon that if she could facilitate this, she would always support her. Reluctantly, Yuseon agreed and approached Youngju. She informed him that the woman he chose, Haesung, didn't reciprocate his feelings and was, in fact, a single mother. Yuseon insinuated that men of Youngju's stature wouldn't want to pursue someone with such circumstances. Youngju's expression turned disheartened. Taking advantage of the moment, Yuseon suggested Yuhi as an alternative, emphasizing that she had chosen him. Although suspicious of Yuhi's sudden interest, given her cold demeanor at the party, Youngju eventually agreed, curious about her intentions. Meanwhile, Seokjin tracked down the school where Haesung was teaching. He had initially assumed her presence at the party meant she was divorced, but after learning about her struggles, he realized otherwise. Seokjin offered to help her, but she declined. She then warned him to keep his distance from Yuhi, reminding him that her husband's death was tied to Yuhi's schemes. Later that evening, Yuseon arranged for Yuhi to meet Youngju at a restaurant. During their conversation, Youngju questioned why Yuhi had acted so indifferent toward him at the party, but had now chosen him. Yuhi feigned indifference, claiming she wasn't interested, but couldn't bear seeing him alone in the hall, which led to her decision. Pretending ignorance, she asked about his company, acting surprised when he mentioned it. She praised his business, sharing an anecdote about spending a month's salary on equipment from his company's game. Through her calculated charm, Yuhi managed to build a connection with Youngju. Elsewhere, under Yan's arrangement, Haesung met with a man she once had feelings for. However, during the meal, he manipulated her into accompanying him upstairs. Once there, he tried to drag her into a room. Terrified, Haesung fled and called Seokjin for help. Seokjin arrived promptly and was relieved to find her safe. They went to a bar together, where they reminisced about the past. During their conversation, Seokjin revealed the reason he broke up with Haesung years ago. He confessed that while his father appeared caring, he had been abusive to his mother during Seokjin's childhood. His older brother had once intervened during an argument and was beaten nearly to death. This trauma led Seokjin's mother to retreat to a hospital, where she eventually passed away. Though years had passed, Seokjin still harbored resentment toward his father. After his college entrance exams, he decided to leave Korea and study in the US, fearing that his anger might one day push him to harm his father. To protect Haesung from being dragged into his painful family history, he chose to leave silently, wishing her happiness from afar. After hearing everything, Haesung was deeply shocked. She never imagined that Seokjin had carried so many hidden secrets from his past. Despite all the years that had passed, they had still drifted apart. As she looked around, Haesung noticed Yuhi sitting nearby, sipping her drink while watching Youngju intently. Confused, Haesung wondered why Yuhi, who had shown such interest in Seokjin at the ball, was now focusing on Youngju. On the other hand, Seokjin seemed to have pieced together the puzzle in his mind. He surmised that Yuhi had likely mistaken her target due to the masks everyone wore at the event, and that her true interest had always been the billionaire, Youngju. Just as Haesung prepared to confront Youngju and reveal Yuhi's deceit, she realized the two of them had already left. After their date, Youngju escorted Yuhi to her door. In her mind, she contemplated inviting him upstairs. Slowly stepping into the elevator, they exchanged glances until the doors closed. What happened next was unexpected. Yuhi's manipulations led to them spending the night together. By morning, their relationship had officially begun. To mark this, Youngju presented Yuhi with an extravagant ring, which thrilled her. However, her excitement didn't last long. That evening, Yuhi invited Youngju out for drinks, but he declined, citing work obligations. Unbeknownst to her, Youngju had only gone along with her to assess her true intentions. Meanwhile, Yuhi, thinking her plan had worked, began targeting Haesung. Using her influence, she reclaimed the house that Hae-sung's late husband had mortgaged and disrupted the school project Hae-sung was working on, pressuring the institution to terminate her employment. But things didn't go as Yoo-hee planned. The school leaders, feeling sympathetic toward Hae-sung, introduced her to a tutoring position. Unexpectedly, the child she was hired to tutor turned out to be Hyung-ju's son. When they met, Hyung-ju greeted her politely, but failed to recognize her as the woman he had chosen at the matchmaking event. He merely felt she seemed familiar, but didn't dwell on it. Hae-sung, on the other hand, instantly recognized him. Rather than resorting to tricks to gain the upper hand, she devised a plan to expose Yoo-hee's true nature when the time was right. The next day, Yoo-hee went on another date with Hyung-ju, casually hinting at the possibility of traveling together. Hyung-ju brushed it off with polite small talk. Later, Yoo-hee insisted on being dropped off at home by Hyung-ju, dismissing the company driver to ensure they were alone. However, as she neared his house, she was startled to see Hae-sung leaving. Shocked, she questioned Hyung-ju, who explained that Hae-sung was his son's tutor. Realizing the potential threat, Yoo-hee panicked and revealed to Hyung-ju that Hae-sung was Athena, the woman from the matchmaking ball. This revelation made everything click for Hyung-ju. No wonder she had seemed so familiar. Afraid that Hae-sung might expose her secrets, Yoo-hee began spreading lies, accusing Hae-sung of seducing men to exploit them financially. She claimed that Hae-sung had trapped many men before and insinuated that Hyung-ju was now her target. Conflicted, Hyung-ju couldn't stand gossip or baseless accusations. Yet when Hae-sung unexpectedly returned to his home, saying she had left her phone behind, it only fueled his suspicions. Convinced by Yoo-hee's words, he accused Hae-sung of intentionally approaching him. Stunned by the accusation, Hae-sung was baffled by his unreasonable behavior. Deciding she didn't need to tolerate it, she bluntly informed him that once his son's final exams were over, she would resign from her tutoring position and leave his life entirely. After leaving Hyung-ju's house, Hae-sung was deeply hurt. She never expected to be misunderstood by others. Frustrated, she sped off in her car, but along the way, another car forced her to stop. When she got out, she realized it was Yoo-hee. Furious, Yoo-hee rushed up to warn Hae-sung to stay away from her. She insisted that even if Hae-sung tried to enter Hyung-ju's house, she would make sure Hae-sung never succeeded in marrying into a wealthy family. Yoo-hee pretended to be on a higher level than Hae-sung, threatening that if Hae-sung dared to provoke her, there would be consequences. Hae-sung then understood why Hyung-ju had started to suspect her. Yoo-hee didn't deny her actions. In fact, she used them to blackmail Hae-sung. She threatened to expose a lie, claiming that Hae-sung's husband had raped her. To make things worse, she used Hae-sung's child to further force her hand. Hae-sung was enraged, but she couldn't do anything in the moment. The next day, Yoo-hee decided to approach Hawken and joined his legal team, knowing that Hawken was responsible for the legal matters at Hyung-ju's company. She planned to use her new position to gain Hyung-ju's trust. Yoo-hee told Hawken that she was Hyung-ju's girlfriend and the future boss of the company, assuring him that her joining would strengthen the relationship between them. Hawken agreed, seeing the potential benefits. Meanwhile, Yoo-seon met with Hyung-ju's mother once again. She asked why her son's romantic life had been at a standstill recently. Yoo-seon reassured her, telling her not to worry because everything was under control. She had never liked Yoo-hee and had seen through her manipulative intentions from the start. Yoo-seon believed that one day Yoo-hee's true nature would be revealed. When Hyung-ju's feelings for her faded, he would realize how dangerous some of the women around him were. At that point, Yoo-seon planned to offer him the best option, Mi-jin. Yoo-seon's ultimate goal was to see Mi-jin and Hyung-ju together, as this would help her secure ownership of a valuable piece of land quickly. She took the first step by having Mi-jin purposely get close to Hyung-ju's mother, gaining her approval. Then, she spoke to Hyung-ju about his current situation with Yoo-hee, knowing that he had already begun to suspect that Yoo-hee was interested in him for his wealth. Seeing this, Yoo-seon introduced Mi-jin to Hyung-ju, suggesting that he needed someone who could help him with his career, and Mi-jin was the perfect match. Not only could she support his career, but she could also manage his family affairs. After hearing Yoo-seon's persuasive words, Hyung-ju was once again swayed. Later, when Rex held an internal meeting, they discussed where Hyung-ju and Mi-jin should have their first meeting. Some suggested a quiet, romantic spot, while others recommended a golf course. After considering Hyung-ju's personality, Yoo-seon decided to book an entire racetrack for their first date. It was a smooth and successful meeting, with the two sharing many common views. At the end of the date, Hyung-ju tested Mi-jin again, asking if she wanted to go for drinks. Though Mi-jin was tempted, she adhered to Yoo Se-in's instructions and declined, citing urgent matters. This helped her pass Hyung-ju's test for now. Meanwhile, Yoo-hee was unaware of the growing threat. She thought Hyung-ju would be at the golf course that day, so she put on her makeup and followed Hawkin there. However, when she arrived, she found that Hyung-ju was not there, leaving her disappointed. On the other side, Yoo Se-in was checking in on Hyung-ju and Mi-jin's date. After hearing Hyung-ju describe Mi-jin as a calm and professional woman, Yoo Se-in agreed that only someone like Mi-jin could provide the stability and trust Hyung-ju needed. She also remarked that Mi-jin would be the perfect wife for a successful man like him. After hearing these persuasive words, Hyung-ju agreed to continue seeing Mi-jin. Meanwhile, Hyung-ju's son, Junho, had finished his exams. Under Hae-sung's guidance, Junho had scored 100 for the first time. Both the boy and his grandmother were overjoyed and immensely grateful for Hae-sung's help. In the evening, after finishing Junho's final lesson, Hae-sung was about to leave when Hyung-ju's mother invited her to stay for dinner. Hae-sung politely declined, explaining that this was her last lesson with Junho. After saying goodbye, she bowed and began to leave, but Junho and his grandmother, reluctant to part ways with her, couldn't bear to see her go. They both believed Hae-sung was an excellent teacher. Hyung-ju's mother, confused, asked why Hae-sung wanted to leave, and upon learning it was due to a promise she made to Hyung-ju. Both of them were puzzled and just stood there in silence. Hae-sung turned and walked away, leaving Hyung-ju sitting motionless at the dining table. Junho, angered by his father's actions, skipped his meal and headed upstairs. Even his mother scolded Hyung-ju for not appreciating such a dedicated teacher. Later, Hyung-ju tried to comfort his son, promising to find a better teacher for him, but Junho refused, wanting only Hae-sung to teach him. He couldn't understand why his father acted the way he did. Hyung-ju, equally puzzled, didn't understand why Junho was so fond of Hae-sung. Junho explained that he felt a deep connection with her, like being with his own mother. For him, Hae-sung was not just a teacher, but someone who inspired him to live. He had never met anyone as responsible and caring as her. After hearing these words from both his mother and son, Hyung-ju fell into deep thought. Later, Hyung-ju met with the man he was introduced to by Seok-jin, hoping to better understand Hae-sung's personality. Subin explained that Hae-sung was a very professional and dedicated person, with no intentions of remarrying. He also mentioned that even her mother had secretly registered for Rex. After realizing that he had misunderstood Hae-sung, Hyung-ju decided to invite her to lunch and apologize. He also hoped she would consider returning as a literature teacher for Junho. Hae-sung said she would think about it. Curious about the ball, Hyung-ju asked Hae-sung what she wanted to say that day. Hae-sung shared her tragic story. Her husband had asked for a divorce due to another woman who had seduced him and manipulated him into embezzling money. When the truth came out, the woman blamed Hae-sung's husband for everything and even falsely accused him of rape. This drove Hae-sung's husband to take his own life. When Hyung-ju asked if the woman was at the ball, Hae-sung chose not to reveal her identity, as she had decided to expose Yoo-hee's true nature to the public when Yoo-hee was at her peak, making her the perfect target. Hyung-ju comforted Hae-sung, reassuring her that the pain would eventually fade with time. He also admitted to his own thoughts while he didn't lack money. The women who approached him all had ulterior motives, and he longed to find a woman who was truly sincere with him. Meanwhile, Yoo-hee, deeply immersed in her own feelings, finally came to her senses after hearing that Yoo Se-in had set up another blind date for Hyung-ju. She went to confront Yoo Se-in, telling her that Hyung-ju was now in love with her and that she didn't need her efforts anymore. Yoo Se-in, however, had never liked Yoo-hee. She saw through Yoo-hee's intentions to marry into wealth and couldn't believe Hyung-ju hadn't noticed. Thanks to Yoo Se-in's reminder, Yoo-hee realized that the ring Hyung-ju gave her at the ball was merely a test. Yoo Se-in also warned her to be careful about Hae-sung, suggesting that their relationship was more than it appeared, and that Hae-sung could come and go from Hyung-ju's house as she pleased. Yoo-hee assured Yoo Se-in that she would handle Hae-sung soon enough. Feeling guilty, Hyung-ju decided to gift Hae-sung a car, but the gesture was too extravagant for Hae-sung, and she firmly rejected it, leaving Hyung-ju surprised. That evening, Yoo-hee sat, contemplating the ring Hyung-ju gave her, her thoughts calculating something. She then messaged Hong, hoping to meet him, but Hyung-ju, still preoccupied with his misjudgment of Hae-sung, had no interest in her. Unbothered, Yoo-hee went directly to Hyung-ju's house to return the diamond ring he had given her. Yoo-hee initially never intended to be a mistress. Her goal was to take control of the household. However, she was taken aback by the cold treatment she received, merely getting a ring in return. She had said that, if it was meant as compensation for that night, she didn't need it, but after walking away, she turned back. Yoo-hee remarked that Hyung-ju was incredibly arrogant and self-assured, thinking that she was only with him for his wealth. She revealed that she never liked him at first and only agreed to engage with him because Yoo Se-yeon had urged her to do so repeatedly. In the end, Yoo-hee provoked him deliberately, claiming there was no point in continuing a relationship with someone like Hyung-ju, who couldn't even understand the basic concept of respecting others. She also mentioned that she was done with that night and didn't need any compensation. Her words had hit their mark. Hyung-ju's pride was wounded, and Yoo-hee's masterful performance had sparked his competitive spirit. Indeed, Yoo-hee was quite skilled at seducing men. Later, they visited the wine shop to select some wine. After initially insisting on breaking up, Yoo-hee switched strategies and suggested they remain friends. Hyung-ju eagerly accepted, thinking it would be no harm to have another confidant, but Yoo-hee had a different agenda. For her, friendship held many possibilities. While they were choosing the wine, Hae-sung appeared with Jun-ho. When Yoo-hee realized her plan was being thwarted by Hae-sung, she became enraged. Hae-sung's sudden arrival happened because Jun-ho had planned to visit his mother that day to share his perfect score in literature. However, seeing his mother living a comfortable life, Jun-ho couldn't bear to disturb her, so he spent several hours waiting outside her building. When Hyung-ju found out about this, he asked Hae-sung to pick up his son and take him home, which is why she showed up. Despite the situation, Yoo-hee, furious, dragged Hae-sung out, and a heated confrontation almost broke out. The tension between the two women was palpable, and although Yoo-hee's schemes were evil, Hae-sung didn't back down. The very next day, Yoo-hee struck again. Using her position at the company, she arranged for the house Hae-sung was living in to be auctioned off. Additionally, the company took back Hae-sung's car for reasons unknown. Hae-sung's life had already become a struggle, and now she faced the prospect of losing her home. With nowhere else to turn, she and her daughter had to move out immediately. Yet, even then, Yoo-hee showed no mercy, going to Hae-sung to taunt her and insult her in front of her daughter. The two women were left feeling helpless and unsure of what to do. After Yoo-hee left, Seok-jin heard about the situation and rushed to help. Upon learning that Hae-sung and her daughter were about to be homeless, he bought the entire building, ensuring they didn't have to move after all. Though Hae-sung continued to pay rent, she was deeply grateful for his support. The next day, Yoo-hee was furious when she found out that Hae-sung hadn't been kicked out as she had hoped. She hadn't anticipated that taking revenge on Hae-sung would be so difficult. Meanwhile, Jun-ho once again earned a perfect score in literature, which delighted Hyung-ju. To celebrate her son's success and thank Hae-sung, Hyung-ju decided to take her son, Hae-sung, and her daughter on a trip. During the meal, Hae-sung's daughter affectionately called Jun-ho Big Brother, which made him genuinely happy. Since his parents' divorce, Jun-ho rarely saw his mother, and though he resented her for betraying his father, he longed for her love. Hae-sung's concern for him made him feel a special connection to her. Later, while they were on a fishing boat, Jun-ho accidentally cut his hand with a hook. Upon seeing the blood, Hae-sung rushed over to tend to his wound, kindly advising him not to touch the water. Hyung-ju, watching their interaction, felt deeply moved. From that moment on, he started to develop a special affection for Hae-sung. He had noticed that his son rarely spoke, but whenever he was with Hae-sung and her daughter, he always seemed to be cheerful and talkative. In that moment, Hyung-ju realized how much he owed to Hae-sung, as her presence had helped Jun-ho become the optimistic person he was today. While the two children were playing around, the sea breeze blew strongly, almost causing Hae-sung to lose her balance. Fortunately, Hyung-ju caught her just in time. This was the first time the two had physical contact, and they both felt shy. When the outing ended, Hyung-ju gave Hae-sung the same luxury car as before. Though she wanted to refuse, her daughter quickly ran into the car. Seeing her daughter's reaction, Hae-sung felt unsure of what to do. Noticing her discomfort, Hyung-ju reassured her, saying it was just a gift, meant to ask her to take care of Jun-ho. It was that simple. After Hae-sung and her daughter left, Hyung-ju was taken aback when Jun-ho, standing next to him, remarked that he would be very happy if Hae-sung were his mother. Seeing his son's admiring gaze, Hyung-ju smiled. Later that night, Seok-jin was drinking alone to drown his sorrows when he came across a post online showing Hae-sung and Hyung-ju spending time together, shared by Hae-sung's daughter. At that moment, stepmother Yoo Se-yeon entered Seok-jin's room and agreed to cooperate with him to match him with Hae-sung. The following day, Yoo Se-yeon used her name to arrange for Hae-sung to meet Seok-jin. She believed that they were a good match and even introduced her relationship with Seok-jin. Coincidentally, Hyung-ju and Mi-jin were also dining there, something clearly arranged by Yoo Se-yeon in advance. Before Hae-sung could say anything, Yoo Se-yeon claimed that the two of them were dating. Hae-sung didn't explain anything to Hyung-ju, understanding that Yoo Se-yeon's intention was to interfere with their relationship, as she had been frequenting Hyung-ju's house recently and feared that it would affect his and Mi-jin's dating. As for Yoo Se-yeon, she introduced Hae-sung to Seok-jin because she knew Seok-jin's father would disapprove of their relationship, leading to a conflict between father and son. Meanwhile, Hyung-ju and Mi-jin's date wasn't going well. Mi-jin deliberately mentioned that they were very compatible, as if their reunion was destiny, but she didn't realize that Hyung-ju wasn't interested in hearing such comments. At the same time, Yoo-hee was busy plotting against Hae-sung. Using her position at the company, she went to Hyung-ju's ex-wife's house and falsely claimed that Hae-sung had used her position as a tutor to get close to Hyung-ju. She also mentioned that Junho liked her a lot. Hyung-ju's ex-wife, not very sharp, immediately went to Hyung-ju's house, believing that Hae-sung had been controlling Junho by making him avoid her calls. She started insulting Hae-sung, accusing her of shameless behavior in front of Junho. Hyung-ju defended Hae-sung, but his ex-wife slapped him. He warned her not to come again, stating that if it weren't for their son, he wouldn't have tolerated her actions. Hae-sung and Junho witnessed the argument. To help clear Hyung-ju's mind, the two of them went to a bar together. Hyung-ju, in a bad mood, decided to drink away his frustrations. Both had experienced the pain of love betrayal, a pain that others couldn't understand. After drinking, Hyung-ju, slightly intoxicated, stared at Hae-sung, and it seemed like he had developed feelings for her. Hae-sung comforted him, telling him that everything would eventually be okay, and that every ending leads to a new beginning. She then asked Hyung-ju for a favor. Meanwhile, Yoo Se-yeon was scheming again. She told Yoo-hee that Hae-sung wasn't just trying to ruin her marriage, but was aiming to destroy her entire life. Only by making Hae-sung completely disappear would everything truly be resolved. In reality, what Yoo Se-yeon wanted was for Hae-sung and Yoo-hee to take revenge on each other. This would make it easier for Mi-jin to succeed in dating Hyung-ju, thus allowing Yoo Se-yeon to achieve her own goals. Once again, Yoo-hee was easily manipulated by Yoo Se-yeon's words. As she was pondering how to handle Hae-sung, she ran into the director, who had been involved in the embezzlement case years ago. The first thing he did after being released from prison was to find Yoo-hee. She was visibly nervous when she saw him, as this director had been imprisoned because he was implicated by Yoo-hee. However, since he had received a sum of money from her, he had chosen to keep quiet about the matter involving Yoo-hee and Hae-sung's husband. Hae-sung had visited the prison numerous times, hoping the director would testify against Yoo-hee so that she could face the appropriate punishment, but he ignored her requests as they brought him no benefit. Seeing that Yoo-hee's career was thriving while he had spent so many years in jail, the director felt deeply uncomfortable. He didn't say much and instead pulled Yoo-hee up to the rooftop. Yoo-hee pleaded with him one last time to help her eliminate Hae-sung, offering to pay him a proper fee for his assistance. Meanwhile, Hyung-ju decided to host a wine party at his winery and sent out invitations to everyone, including Seok-jin's bedridden father. When Seok-jin saw the beautiful woman with him, he was immediately captivated. The two were seen laughing and talking happily, which caught the attention of Seok-jin's father. He asked his son if the woman next to him was the one he liked. Hae-sung quickly denied it, stating that they were just normal friends, but Seok-jin openly confessed his feelings for Hae-sung. He also said that despite Hae-sung being divorced and having a child, he would still choose her, which angered his father deeply. The tense atmosphere made Hae-sung uncomfortable, and she turned to leave. But both Seok-jin and Hyung-ju stopped her. Seeing both men standing up for Hae-sung, Yoo-hee couldn't hold back any longer. She approached Hyung-ju and accused Hae-sung of being a woman who would do anything to get what she wanted. She claimed that Hae-sung had come to his house as a tutor to get close to him. To prove her point, Yoo-hee played a recording of Hae-sung's university professor, who revealed that she had known about Hyung-ju's identity from the start, and that she had been aware of his family's need for a tutor. Even if she quit her job, she would still go there. Fed up with Yoo-hee's shamelessness, Hae-sung couldn't hold back any longer. She took out a ring that Yoo-hee had given to her husband as a token of love, revealing Yoo-hee's relationship with him to everyone. When Yoo-hee saw the ring, she was visibly embarrassed but still tried to justify herself. She claimed she was forced into the situation, but Hae-sung pointed out that both their names were on the ring and that it was Yoo-hee who had bought it. Hae-sung asked Yoo-hee what she had done to make her husband choose to end his life. At that moment, a man suddenly interrupted. This man seemed to know the whole story, and judging by the director's reaction, it seemed he was on Yoo-hee's side. Seeing that her allies had arrived, Yoo-hee quickly fired back, accusing Hae-sung's husband of framing her, which led to the director's imprisonment. The director turned to Hae-sung and asked if she truly wanted to know the truth. Before anyone could react, the director slapped Yoo-hee hard. She was left stunned and confused by the sudden turn of events. The director then played a recording where Yoo-hee was heard blaming Hae-sung's husband. At last, the truth was revealed, and Hae-sung couldn't help but shed tears as everything came to light. Realizing that she had been exposed, Yoo-hee went into a rage and screamed loudly. Later, the police arrived to arrest her for embezzlement and slander. It turned out that Hyung-ju had organized the banquet that day because Hae-sung had shared the entire truth with him. He wanted to help her get justice and punish the wrongdoer. Everything finally came to a close as Hyung-ju confessed his feelings to Hae-sung, and the two began preparing for a new life together. However, Hyung-ju never anticipated that Yoo-hee, who had just been arrested the previous day, would make an appearance the very next day. It turned out that Yoo-hee had blackmailed Counselor Young, threatening to reveal their relationship if he didn't help her. Fearing the scandal would affect his election, Counselor Young used his influence to release his illegitimate daughter from prison. After her release, the first thing Yoo-hee did was challenge Hyung-ju's group, declaring that she wouldn't give up so easily. Meanwhile, Yoo-seon approached Hae-sung, claiming that Seok-jin had fought with his father over her. She also stated that she supported their marriage, given the family's property dispute. However, Hae-sung saw through Yoo-seon's manipulative intentions. Just then, Yoo-hee entered the room, surprising Hae-sung. The two immediately started arguing, each vowing not to back down. Yoo-hee's sole goal was to bring down Hyung-ju and destroy Hae-sung. She knew her father would protect his flawless image to secure his presidential campaign, so she decided to use this to her advantage, asking him to help her get revenge. Her first move was to take down Hyung-ju's company. She was determined to not only ruin him for betraying her and siding with Hae-sung, but also to make sure her father protected her. Counselor Young agreed to support her, but only if she kept the matter under wraps. Afterward, Yoo-hee approached Hyung-ju's business partner, a man who had long been scheming to take over Hyung-ju's company and who was having an affair with Hyung-ju's ex-wife. Yoo-hee showed him a contract containing a flaw in the merger deal, which he could exploit to bring Hyung-ju down. The man seized the opportunity and agreed to work with her. Soon, Hyung-ju's company was in serious trouble. To save it, he sought help from Counselor Young, who agreed to cooperate, but with one condition: Hyung-ju had to marry the woman of his choosing. That woman turned out to be none other than Yoo-hee, his own daughter. It became clear that Yoo-hee still couldn't let go of her desire to marry Hyung-ju. She promised that if he proposed to her, she would help him solve his company's problems, and Counselor Young wouldn't need to intervene. On the other side, Mi-jin's mother confronted Counselor Young, questioning why he was pushing for a marriage between Yoo-hee and Hyung-ju. It was obvious she had orchestrated the plan to match her daughter with him. Counselor Young, however, refused to reveal the truth about his relationship with Yoo-hee, as he still needed his wife's support for his election campaign. Mi-jin's mother, undeterred, devised a new plan and began exploring ways to make Yoo-hee disappear for good. Meanwhile, Hyung-ju's mother visited Hae-sung, now aware that her son had feelings for her. She offered Hae-sung money, hoping she would leave him and stop tutoring Jun-ho. Hae-sung, however, had no interest in remarrying and refused to accept the money. That day, as it was her daughter's birthday, Hae-sung returned home early to prepare a special meal, and Seok-jin brought a cake. But Yoo-hee had no intention of letting them be. She devised a malicious plan to harm Hae-sung's daughter. Not long after, Hae-sung received devastating news. Her daughter had been injured, and when Hae-sung rushed to the hospital, she found her unconscious on a hospital bed. The doctor informed her that if her daughter didn't wake up within 2 weeks, they would have no choice but to prepare for her funeral. Hae-sung was overwhelmed with fear and disbelief. She didn't understand why this had happened. At that moment, Yoo-seon visited Hae-sung, handing her a photo of the transaction between Yoo-hee and the driver who had hit Hae-sung's daughter. Hae-sung was devastated, unable to believe that Yoo-hee could be so heartless, showing no mercy even toward a child. After learning that Yoo-hee had harmed Hae-sung's daughter, Hyung-ju stormed off to confront her, but Yoo-hee stood firm, justifying her actions. After calming down, Hae-sung took her ex-husband's phone to get it repaired, uncovering many hidden secrets. One of the most shocking revelations was that Yoo-hee was the illegitimate daughter of Counselor Young, explaining why she was released so easily. Hae-sung immediately confronted Counselor Young, demanding he keep a tighter grip on his daughter, but was quickly escorted out by security. Just before she left, she ran into Yoo-hee and, without hesitation, slapped her. Hae-sung made it clear that she would ensure everyone involved would pay for their actions. After leaving Counselor Young's office, Hae-sung met with a journalist, handing over all the evidence she had gathered, hoping the journalist would help expose everything. Meanwhile, Yoo-hee decided to act first to gain the upper hand. She threatened Counselor Young with the leverage of their shared secret, her status as his illegitimate daughter, and demanded his help in silencing Hae-sung to secure his political future. Counselor Young, desperate to protect his ambitions, agreed. Yoo-hee then witnessed Counselor Young instructing his secretary to handle Hae-sung. Shortly after, as Hae-sung and the journalist were about to head home, a car followed her, forced her vehicle off the road, and knocked her unconscious. They locked her in the trunk and sent a photo of her car being crushed by a garbage truck to Yoo-hee, who felt satisfied with the outcome. At that moment, Hyung-ju approached Yoo-hee, agreeing to her request. He took her to the location where they were set to marry. Though their wedding wasn't driven by love, Hyung-ju insisted on making it public. He planned a press conference, and to Yoo-hee's surprise, he made the announcement that the wedding would not be a quiet affair. However, at the press conference, Hyung-ju revealed a shocking truth. The big screen displayed details of Yoo-hee's relationship with Counselor Young. Yoo-hee was terrified and tried to leave, but Hyung-ju stopped her. He publicly exposed her as the illegitimate daughter of Counselor Young, accusing her of embezzlement, bribery, and even murder. Counselor Young, watching from the sidelines, was stunned to discover that his wife and secretary had betrayed him. Unbeknownst to Counselor Young, Hae-sung had already anticipated that Yoo-hee would try to kill her to silence her. She had met with Mi-jin's mother, who was also Counselor Young's wife and secretary, and revealed everything about Yoo-hee's connection to Counselor Young. Hae-sung also informed Mi-jin's mother that she had handed all the evidence to the press. She warned that, if anything happened to her, Counselor Young would be held responsible. Faced with this, Mi-jin's mother chose not to harm Hae-sung, but instead let her go. With everything exposed, Counselor Young and Yoo-hee were held accountable for their actions. A month later, Hae-sung visited Yoo-hee in prison for the first time, where they had a final conversation. Hae-sung asked if Yoo-hee regretted what she had done, to which Yoo-hee replied that she had no regrets. From a young age, her biggest dream had been to destroy Counselor Young, and she had lived a life of humiliation, striving to achieve her goals at any cost. Hae-sung, unwilling to engage further, stood up and left. Hae-sung's daughter recovered without any major issues, and Hae-sung decided to open herself up to marriage once again. On her wedding day, as she walked down the aisle, it was Seok-jin holding her hand, but his expression was less than joyful. He was merely a bridesmaid. The real groom, however, stood at a distance. Hyung-ju. Despite his feelings, Seok-jin silently wished her happiness. The story concluded with a happy ending. This wraps up the entire plot of the movie Marital Ambition. Do you think this movie is worth watching? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.